Hi guys, this is David Negrin, host of the Script Podcast and executive director of the NYC Screenwriters Collective. I'm excited to announce that we've created a Patreon campaign for the Script. Patreon is like a Kickstarter, but it allows you to give ongoing pledges every month and receive ongoing rewards. Of course, the Script Podcast will continue to be free, but we're just asking for a little help. We release 4 or 5 podcasts a month, but we'd like to do more. We'd also like to improve our audio quality and release video podcasts with rich content. So here's how you can help. Become a patron of the Script Podcast and gain access to our VIP activity feed with premium content. There you'll be able to communicate privately with myself and my co-hosts after every podcast. You can get a packet of original screenwriting guides written exclusively for members of the NYC Screenwriters Collective. You can receive our monthly tracking board preview podcast for Hollywood insider updates on big script sales and the hottest spec screenplays to hit the market. You can get access to full on-demand video of NYC Screenwriters Collective events, lectures, and panel discussions. At the highest patron levels, you can even request the film or TV series we analyze and come on the script yourself to analyze it. So please, check out all our rewards, join our inner circle. Become a patron of the Script Podcast at patreon.com/thescript.
In this wasteland, I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead. A man reduced to a single instinct. Survive.
It is by my hand! You arise!
As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy. Me or everyone else.
This is The Script, the official podcast of the NYC Screenwriters Collective. My screenwriters tonight are Kristina Leath-Malin, Jeremy Engdahl-Johnson, Jordan, the Wildling Beard Rosengarten, and David, the Blood-Bagged Negrin.
I like that. That was one hell of an introduction.
Bust a deal, you face the wheel.
Of course you liked it. You got a nickname. I didn't get anything. I just got my usual hyphenates.
4 scribes enter, 1 podcast leaves. Oh, what a day. What a lovely day. We're doing Mad Max Fury Road. How's everybody tonight?
Doing well.
Excellent.
Pretty darn good.
Happy to have everybody on. George Miller's 4th film in the Max Rockatansky quadrilogy now? Is that what we call it?
Yeah, this is not a remake. This is a continuation, correct?
We got to talk about that a little bit.
All right.
Ah, okay. We got Jeremy is our Mad Max historian tonight. George Miller is credited with the screenplay. Also, Brendan McCarthy, Nico Lathoris. George Miller. You may also know him from directing 2 Happy Feet movies and making bank, and Lorenzo's Oil in the 90s, The Witches of Eastwick. And before that, 3 Mad Max films. Jeremy, how did it go?
Well, we got to talk a little bit about history first, right?
Okay, first there were the dinosaurs.
Yeah, first there were the dinosaurs. And then, but here's the thing that I think to know about Mad Max is if you don't know this, and it should be obvious, but maybe it's not to some people, but Mad Max made Mel Gibson's career. And so his first movie, he did a couple TV things, but his first movie was something called Summer City in 1977, the year in which I was born.
Wow.
And it was about 4 surfers who get involved in like some murder plot. I've never seen that. I don't want to see that. But in 1979, he did the original Mad Max, which was a movie about kind of right on the edge of post-apocalyptic, and a guy has a family, and like his best friend and his wife and baby get killed by this gang, and he goes after them, and he becomes Mad Max, and he goes crazy. So that was this kind of film that most people haven't seen. And then a couple years later, we had Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior, which is the one that everybody's seen. This is classic Mad Max, driving crazy cars, and it's really the thing that most closely hews to what we've got going in Mad Max Fury Road. But it wasn't probably until '85 when we had Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome where everything went big time, and you had Tina Turner. And, this is Bartertown, Master Blaster, like one of the greatest.
We don't need another hero.
I knew someone was going to sing tonight.
Yeah, well,
Oy vey.
Anyway, so those are the three movies. And
you know what's amazing to me, even until recently, until the press started coming out for Fury Road, did I even know that there was a fourth Mad Max, that the original I thought Road Warrior was the first Mad Max. And I watched these as a kid on HBO. I watched Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome a dozen times.
You did not have all the cable stations, clearly, because the Road Warrior was playing rather incessantly. In fact, I think there was probably an opportunity for you to see it 100 times had you had access.
No, Road Warrior was playing, but the original Mad Max was not.
Well, nobody was into that because they wanted to skip to the part where they had crazy costumes and souped-up cars and everybody was fighting for gasoline.
Isn't that fascinating that it's like, get right to the post-apocalyptic. We don't want to see the edge of the apocalypse. I mean, that reminds me of the Terminator films, right? It's like, we keep, in the original Terminator it was somewhat interesting, but you watch the original Terminator, the action is, they're shooting each other around LA, and the most interesting part of that movie is Arnold Schwarzenegger like cutting himself up and slowly turning into the Terminator. We're dying to see the post-apocalypse. So is the original Mad Max that it's full of, it's like car chases, like police, and is the world ending? Well,
where do we start this movie? And I think it's instructive. We start with, the apocalypse is already it's happening, or it's happened in that case, because nobody cared about, this guy driving around with his family, and then he gets pursued by a gang and things go really bad. Like, that is not nearly as interesting as the idea that gas is the new currency, and you got these weird side cultures, and everybody's like driving extensively and really worried about acquiring gas while wasting a large amount of it. I mean, it's this amazing 80s conceit. It is awesome, and remade now, it just feels perfect. Like, the timing is just right.
Yeah, and you don't get what I like is that you don't get that whole. You get a little bit in the beginning, but you don't get this whole backstory of how did things get like this. Where exactly are we? At least in this new movie, I know that it's supposed to. I think the original films, they're all in Australia and they're in the outback or something. Here, it seems like it could be anywhere. I mean, it's just the point is that this is the future. It's just this apocalyptic wasteland, and movie starts, and here we are.
I mean, we're gonna do the basic beats for this movie, but this thing is so well done. The story is so phenomenal in this. Like, I don't think we need to do that much, spend a time on the beat sheet too much. Just quickly, I want to go around and I want to hear what general thoughts on the movie. I want to start with Kristina.
I have to say it was my favorite movie of the year so far. Favorite, hands down. Wow. We'll watch it again. We'll probably buy it.
You still buy movies?
Well, when Ninja Video doesn't work now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, though. You never know when you're going to need to have a local copy.
It was worth it. It was, and I saw like 3 days later, I saw the Avengers, and I was like, wah wah, wasted money. So
Avengers was fine, but you know what?
No, it was a waste of
this movie.
Horrible.
This movie, Mad Max Fury Road, it's something we haven't seen in a while. They don't, I wrote, my first note was they don't make movies like this anymore.
But here's the thing that I liked about it was that, and the Avengers comparison is interesting, and we should talk about that, because the Avengers had the lamest cardboard female characters, and this movie, and I want to know what Kristina thinks about this, but I was arguing with myself, is this actually like a feminist movie, or is it just a total wet dream? Like, when he comes around the side of the big truck, and he sees all of the wives like bathing, and they're
the breeders.
Yeah, various stages of
in
pregnancy with like white
yeah.
wet like clothing, and you're just like, this is ridiculous, and I love it, and I also am like,
it's an oasis.
It's an oasis.
Oh,
So,
come on.
Anyway, I thought it was fascinating. I like that they took something and they kept to the mythology, and at the same time they made it entirely new. And so, like, I grew up on these movies. You know, I've seen them so many times, and yet I felt like I was in that world, but it was something new, and I appreciated it. If you're going to remake things, stop telling the same story over and over again and start telling us something new about the people who are involved.
Yeah, please don't redo the origin story. We know.
Yeah.
We got it.
Yeah.
Don't do Spider-Man. Thanks very much. We don't need it again.
I'm only here for feminist
Jordan.
commentary. I'm just saying right now.
Bullshit.
You got more to offer than that.
That's what I'm going for the jugular on. That's all.
That's fine. That's what's going to be your death blow. Jordan, general thoughts on this film?
I was expecting... my expectations were pretty high going in, so I was expecting to be let down when I saw this movie. Having said that, this movie fucking ruled. I mean, like this, I was not only just thoroughly entertained, but it just, I mean, I think you already said this, David, but this just seemed like I haven't seen a movie like this since maybe the early 90s, if not 80s, or just something very strange. Like it just seemed real, and I don't know. It was, and I think that's also partially, you know, we're gonna get into it, but I don't know if it's such a deep script per se, but I do think it was directed. I mean, you know, George Miller directed the shit out of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, we can try to delineate that tonight. I think the difference between the directing and the writing here.
Yeah.
But I think there's some serious screenwriting going on here, because screenwriting isn't always about what you put in. It's also about what
writing?
you leave. Writing. Screenwrite. We do a podcast about screenwriting.
What? Weren't you guys telling me it was like solely based primarily on storyboards?
I know that they started with storyboards. They began with storyboards. There had to be a script.
Well, there wasn't a lot of dialogue. I mean, have we ever had a main character, a titular character who said so little? And why did he do it all in the Bane voice? That's my only critique of the movie. Like, why did he have the Bane voice the whole time?
Voice.
Yeah, it was the Bane voice.
It's just a
grunting.
Voice. So
he said like 45 words the whole movie. I mean,
I don't understand one of it. I could not understand what he was saying. Well, not that it was a problem, because he didn't really have that big of a part.
And it didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter.
Nope.
Even, Kristina, you make a good point. If you storyboard out the entire film, that's still a script, right? It's still it's a beat sheet, right? It's detail. It's just doesn't. It's dialogueless. As opposed
like an animation
to
in a sense.
Exactly. It's more like an animated film, as opposed to somebody like Wong Kar-wai, who goes on set and says, "All right, let's see what happens." You know, I have some ideas, or something that's semi-scripted, like Curb Your Enthusiasm, where there's an outline and they don't know what's going to happen in the end.
Yep.
The George Miller and his team knew exactly what they were going to shoot, and the intricacy of this film, proves that. What I wanted to say about my general thoughts about the success of this film is, and one of the things that they just don't do anymore with Hollywood movies, is give the audience some damn respect. Drop us in the middle of a story with a deep mythology and don't explain a damn thing. We'll catch up. We know who the good guy is. We know what his goal is. We see some bad guys trying to stop him. We get it. I love that we discover the mythology, the story, the backstory, everyone's backstory visually. We see these cars. We see the breeder women. We see the what are the boys called in the white?
Oh, that whole thing, the witness thing, is just brilliant. Like, they show, like, we don't even know what's going on, and then somebody is spray painting his mouth, and he's sacrificing himself in this crazy kamikaze way. And it's mid action. It's like, okay, he's doing this, and he just blew up a car. I think we know what that means. That is nuts.
and all those guys, and we find out later he's got like 2 tumors, right? And then you cut back to, he was sick in the beginning. All the guys in white, the crazy boys, they have a name, I forget what they're called.
War Boy.
Right, and the War Boys are like, they've all got like, they're all terminal. They got radiation, sickness or something. They're all gonna die.
But that's the amazing thing about this, is that there's no moment where they sit down and have to explain it to the audience. Okay, this is what's happening. This is why they're it just happens, and you catch up, and and it's almost like, I think I said this to you, David, because we had seen it in the theater together. I had said it feels like
so
this
romantic.
is a movie that was. I know, it was
hand
beautiful.
in hand.
Aww.
Yes.
Jordan is my new hero.
So my point is though, you are. I felt like a movie that was made in the future, that was like kind of like sent back to us, because they don't dumb it down to explain what's going on in this weird. They don't explain their customs. You catch up. You're like, oh, that's obviously what's going on here, and it's fascinating. Like that, I love that stuff. I hate it in movies when they have to sit back and explain it as if they know that they're explaining it to the audience. Here
and
it was just
better storytelling. That's respecting your audience.
Absolutely.
And you can do that when you've got so much action driving forward. This was not a character piece, right? There's so much external conflict that we're on, but I mean, it just, not just figuratively, but it literally moves forward constantly. The whole movie, I'm sitting there thinking, please don't stop the truck. Please don't stop at a town. Please don't, let them catch the truck. If they catch the truck, I'm bored with this movie. I don't want to see them, thrown in a torture chamber and then deal with it and try to escape from some place. I was just like, please don't catch the truck. And to my, total joy, the entire movie is on the truck. It's amazing.
Well, and David, I know we're not going to linger on the structural stuff, but one of the things I found fascinating about this movie is that it had this huge second act, and the huge second act is on the truck. Like when she sets off until they turn the damn truck around and they go back into it, it is this massive second act, and it works. When have you ever seen a half the movie be the second act and it just kicks ass?
No, it's 3/4 of the movie. I mean, I'll drop in the structure right now. Just let's get it out of the way so we can have fun with this. Set up, Act 1 is Max is a road warrior in an apocalypse. Okay, Max is captured. The opening image is the same shot from one of the earlier movies, isn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think it's Road Warrior. It may even be the poster for Road Warrior.
I think it's the poster for Road Warrior. A beautiful way to transition us in, right? It's Max and his car, and he's alone, right? And instantly, he's being pursued. He gets caught. He's captured. He's turned into a blood bag. Fantastic. And right then, they introduce a new character, Furiosa. She's a tough imperator leading a fuel run to Oil Town. That's her goal. Okay, and the antagonist is this feudal lord. Do we have a name for him? I don't even know what his name is.
Yeah, it's Morton Joe.
Who is
Really?
He was the gang chief in the first movie, by the way.
Get out.
Yep.
It's the same guy?
Yep.
Same guy.
Wow. Wait, the actor or the character?
Same
The actor.
actor, different character.
It's the actor.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought it was the character. Well, the actor is great. All right. Character would have been better. So, and then, the inciting incident is Furiosa going on this oil run. The break into two is when she goes rogue. And Furiosa begins, takes the choice and breaks us into two, which, Jeremy, you brought this up when we were talking about it last week. That's usually the protagonist's job, right?
Yeah, and you got the named character who's not doing anything. He's quote unquote a blood bag. And by the way, that's another thing about setting up this world is that they use the language to set it up, and it's very smart. I mean, we know what a blood bag is. It's screwed up, and we don't want to ask too many questions, but we know. But yeah, you've got this whole thing lined up in this way now to. But it's very strange to have this kind of secondary character we don't know anything about setting us out on our quest.
The Max, though, is our protagonist except for not being the guy who does the actual breaking to do, except for being tied up and forced after onto the journey as being tied to the truck. Other than that, he's very active throughout the film, and what it does is it makes him more of an underdog. It helps us give our main character a lot more obstacles to climb. Second act is we find out Furiosa has stolen the valuable breeders from our antagonist, from our bad guy. One or two are already pregnant. The antagonist sends the entire war party to get her. Later we find out it's for family reasons. I think we should talk about that. And our midpoint, Jeremy, guys, I think our midpoint is when Max gets control of the war machine.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's where it escalates, where he finally gets off the car, he finally gets on the war machine, he gets control, and he and Furiosa and the girls are still at odds, but he takes control of the war machine. There's still a ton of movie left.
And David, with that idea, so the A story in this is what? It's Max's adventure.
Yeah.
And the B
Max escaping.
And the B story is the kind of the breeders getting away and like Furiosa getting away, kind of this escape story, right?
Yeah, this is a classic. What is it called? With the reluctant hero. He does not want to be here. He doesn't want to be involved with any of this. He wants to be on his own with his car driving alone. And at the low point, he actually does leave them, right?
Right.
But then he chooses to come back and help them.
We all knew was going to happen.
I'm getting so confused with this because I feel like Max is the only one that we get like a hint of a backstory with the minimal flashbacks to his kid and his wife, whereas with the women I feel like we're in their current story and we get more of what's happening now from them and less from her. So I don't know how you really call one lead over the other.
Well, and I think that's a good point, because I think the A story, even though it ends up kind of defining it, and it is Max, and there's a reason that it's a Mad Max movie, the B story is a lot more vivid and interesting. And
the A story is the escape, right?
That
and
could
the A
be.
story it isn't about the character whose characters are depth. Absolutely, Furiosa's background and the women and their little relationships, and that one redhead who gets with the
kid,
the dead boy.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's beautiful stuff. A little C story there. That's a lot deeper. We don't know a hell of a lot about Max. There certainly isn't much between Max and Furiosa.
Also, they play with telling you her
like,
future, like it's all about her destiny, her making it to these people, her getting to her mom or figuring out her mom's story, and you never really. It doesn't seem like you really care about his story, because it's almost like an assumption that you know Mad Max, you know his wife and kid, so all you need are a few in the sand flashbacks with him, because you don't really break that out much, even though it's called.
Well, and I think
Max.
that's an interesting aspect of this whole thing, is that it feels
like it's her journey, even though it's called Mad Max.
Well, structurally is weird, but it works just fine. Like it doesn't line up A story B story in the way that it should, but it's fine. Like it's totally believable because we're on this chase.
It is her story. It's more like Shane or an old western where they need Clint Eastwood or somebody to help them with the journey. They can't do it on their own, and he helps them, but it's not. We don't know much about the tall, dark stranger, but we need him to get the job done. So we know. I mean, that's why. I mean, before I saw this movie, somebody dropped a spoiler to me and was like, "Oh, by the way, it's Charlize Theron's movie. It's not Bane's movie." Right? And I was like, oh man, because I already had low expectations, because I thought the trailer had all the good parts in it, and I was like, geez, they Hollywoodized the shit out of this. Boy, was I wrong, right? And then second of all, I was like, did they really like lie to us, right? About the fact that Tom Hardy is actually the star of this movie and on the poster, but it's not true. And no, it's just a very complex story. It's definitely a two-hander. If you want to get into the details about who the protagonist is, the protagonist is probably Mad Max, but it's a lot more invested in Furiosa's story with her mother, with the women she's leading, with the tribe she eventually finds.
Well, I have an easy way to figure this out, because I also felt that Max is definitely. Here's the thing: if you pulled Max out of this story, right? Let's extract him from this. What changes? Is it because to
they
me
don't
this
escape?
They drive off into the Great White
do
Waste, like
Yeah, they die. They will not complete their mission. But again, and the midpoint is when Max takes over the War Machine and he says, we're going to do things my way. And essentially, he's the reluctant hero. His way is, I'm getting out of here.
Wait, so why are we running to call him the hero? Why can't we call this a buddy movie? This is a Lethal Weapon. It took both of them to get this done. I don't see why we're choosing
I'm fine
one.
with that.
And there is that handshake. There's that handshake that they exchange at the end, which is like, it's not that Hollywoodized, like, oh, they're gonna give each other a kiss and this and that. It's like, no, like, it's like this level of understanding. Like, all right,
It's definitely a buddy movie. But it's more than that, because they're not just Lethal Weapon. They're bigger than that.
And they're not buddies.
Totally.
I mean, that's the other thing
And they're not friends, right?
But
that's
most
part
of these
it.
buddy movies,
they're
they don't start
reluctant.
off buddies. Look at 48
Yeah,
Hours,
right. The enemies become friends. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know what it reminds me of? Like if you look at like the second Terminator, right? You have the protagonist. You can say Sarah Connor, right, protecting her son, but then also you have the Terminator who's there, and it's this like similar thing where at the end they give each other this handshake of like, all right, we both
did it together.
Exactly, we both did it together in this kind of teamwork where like that's really what it reminded me of, especially that end handshake. I think it's also because Charlize Theron had some metal arms, so.
Oh yeah, nice reference. I'm not arguing that Charlize Theron is not the main character of this movie. I'm arguing. I'm trying to defend that Tom Hardy isn't a minor character in this movie.
Oh, not at all.
It's hard to think of him as major half the time.
Well, and the break into 3 is great because it's and like one of the things that I will say about this that was so interesting, and I'll invoke the first Mad Max movie, is all the flashbacks were straight up like original Mad Max, but we never really knew what was going on, and we didn't actually get that concluded. I don't think that even though it was his daughter flashing out at him that kind of got him into the mindset he needed to be to go and do what he did at the break into 3, it still was not like resolved. It was just. It just haunted him to the point where he finally did the right thing.
Yep.
Right. That's like
totally.
a D story, man. That's like another layer going on there. And our low point, our all is lost, is when they get to the green place and there is no green place. Also, the boy dies. The dead boy dies. The death boys or whatever. And then they split off. Furiosa and the women are going to go across the salt plain. And Mad Max is going to do his own thing, and then, his backstory rolls in, and he decides to do the right thing. I'm not going to be the loner. I'm going to be the team. And
I don't even think he didn't want to be a loner. I think he just wanted to help them. Like you don't know that he won't leave right after they get back to the place. I think he is probably still a loner.
That's true, and he does. Yeah, he does.
He slowly backs out. He just
he does leave at the end. But that's the theme of a lot of post-apocalyptic stories is like, can you preserve your humanity?
Do the right thing.
Amidst the chaos, right? And it's well done here. Break into 3, they decide to turn around and return to the headquarters.
I think there's also something about this, like, and I'm sure they weren't fishing that deep, but that idea of setting off across the vast, like, unknown, like, certain death, desert to, like, fulfill your quest. I mean, that's very like Lawrence of Arabia, and he kind of turns them around on that. Like, and again, I'm not trying to get too meta about the whole thing, but it just feels like that was the question. It's like, no, we're gonna do an end around, and we're gonna go back through them, which is gonna get us to the point that you were talking about, David, which is like the truck being surrounded, and we're gonna go through the thick of the whole gauntlet.
They'll never see that coming.
They'll never see it coming, and it's gonna
badass.
be nuts.
Yeah,
it's pretty badass.
And it is just and it's. I mean,
It was scary as hell. It felt futile. Like, just very Thelma and Louise going off the cliff. Like, really? You're going to go back that way? Really?
Yeah, we're pulling out all the desert movies here, right? They're all being invoked.
There was
Totally.
the third act where they return. They go right back up the middle. It's like, to me, I think when we left the theater, Jordan, you didn't believe that they would send the entire army after them, because otherwise, if you don't send all the war parties after them, you can't do this like end around strategy.
Right.
But did anyone feel like that was totally weak? That was the worst warlord move I've ever seen. Like, okay, we're gonna send all our guns, but we're gonna keep someone badass at home just in case. What was up with that? They left like the little brother, like the half pint.
No, I
Really?
agree. I agree with that, but it was. I mean, I keep like making this thing more and more highfalutin, but like it was the Iliad. I mean, it's like, somebody kidnaps my wives, and I'm going to send the entire frigging army of Greece after them, and we're going to have like World War III.
Because because of sheer
vanity.
He's vain, and he has hubris. I actually one idea I had was, and maybe we can talk now is a good time to talk about the breeders and the feminine imagery in the film. I think that the warlord, what's his name again?
Joe.
I wish I wish they would have yelled it out. It's Predator's human cousin, half human cousin, right? I think he was actually smart. I think he actually had values. I think he was a dictator, a ridiculous like psychopath. But remember, we find out later, one of the other warlords says, "Oh, we're doing all this for family reasons."
Right.
Because I think, in a sense, he valued having healthy children, and in a sense, values the perpetuation of the species. I think this guy thinks he's the only one who's going to be able to perpetuate the species with all the radiation and the water and all that stuff. And so, yeah, you steal the healthy breeders, that's everything. We need to get them back because he has a grand plan to repopulate Earth with him as, Emperor Ming or whatever the heck he wants to be.
Okay, there's a couple things that I'm just gonna call out right now. What's the problem with Charlize Theron? How come she's the only female warrior? I did not see near another female warrior. What is it if she's hot but she can't breed? Was she like possibly sterile? Like, because I didn't see any other women. All the other women were totally old on the ground.
That's a good question. I have no idea. Like, where were they?
We know that, but
special?
hold on. In part 2 of Act 2, she meets up with her clan, and all the women there are warriors, right? All those older ladies, they're bad motherfuckers.
But on the Road Warrior side.
Do you remember our It's Follows podcast, and we talked about if we had to have sex, it would be like a superhero or someone that was badass that wouldn't die, that give us a little time to live. If of all the women around, you had to keep your species going, wouldn't you pick the strongest of women?
Yeah, you make a good
interesting.
Point. You make a good point. Not just like the 3 model chicks, right?
The same point. Like, everyone had a price, a visceral price, whether it was flesh, whether it was the blood bag. And I don't think it was a feminist thing, because you could be a blood bag or you could be a boobie, whatever you had to get.
But those women, I think, would be better breeders than the skinny, like the 100-pound, model chick.
Those girls were the same ones. They were in their 30s. Those girls are younger. Just think about the progression of time. You crank out like what, 4, 5, 6 feet, and then they're not saying, "Oh, go to Planet Fitness after you crank out a baby." You're just sitting there.
So they were. That was the first generation. Their first. I got it.
I don't think that Planet Fitness is still open in Mad Max world.
That would be amazing if it was, though.
I don't know if it would. It says the personal trainer. Like, that'd be great. You got an infinite market. You need like Sworkit or like some sort of mobile exercise app if you're going to be a road warrior. I don't think you're going to Planet Fitness. That's a good place to get jumped.
Yeah, I got you. I was actually looking for them to pass by a 7-Eleven or something. That would have been interesting.
In Beyond Thunderdome, there were relics of the past. They had the whole airplane thing. In Mad Max, there definitely were references to the old world. And as Jeremy was telling us, in in Road Warrior, there were relics of the old world. And Jeremy was saying Mad Max took place entirely in pre-apocalyptic.
Tipping point.
Yeah, tipping point. How did you guys feel about the fact that there was no link to regular world?
I actually kind of like that.
There was the other town.
Oil Town?
We don't know, though. Remember the Fuel Town? We don't know.
Yeah.
They set that up, what Fuel Town looks like.
All we got to see was smokestacks or something like that.
Yeah. Well,
It was Jersey.
But we didn't. It was Jersey, yeah.
I liked that it was boiled down
Of course,
to just
Jersey
cars.
survives. 'Cause Jersey, it's post-apocalyptic right now.
Right.
Yeah, but I like that it was boiled down to like the automotive side of it. I mean, like it's ridiculous, and it's the ultimate hypocrisy of the movie that they are so consumed with oil and they're driving around the entire frigging time. Like, and it was funnier in 79 and 82 when we were in the middle of oil crises, and now oil is super cheap, so now it's just kind of meta and strange. But at the same time, it's just like, of course that's what we're doing. Like,
I honestly, if there was one thing that distracted me in this movie, I was like, when are they going to run out of the gas? I kept thinking about it. I kept looking, at one point they have that oil pod.
Yeah, they abandoned that as a constraint in the movie. They were just like, we've got plenty.
They abandoned the oil pod, and I'm like, well, what else is in that thing? Is that oil? Like
a bunch of water to soak the white T-shirts, apparently.
It was milk. It was milk.
This is a rarity, but
there was milk in that truck. What was up with that?
Kristina, was the truck milk?
The side pouch. No, because they were going to fuel up. But they had like pockets of milk on the side, right?
They did. You gotta have that.
You gotta have breast milk on your truck. Yeah, they had the milking machines too, so it's like they were transporting the milk. I mean, we don't even know what that was about. Like, that was totally unexplained. Maybe it'll come up in the
Mad Max.
Maybe currency. Whoa, currency.
Yeah.
You can't just.
Oh, right.
That works for me.
To pay for the oil.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right,
because
because
all the milking we did,
Right, and when you stop by Starbucks in Fury Road, they don't have soy lattes anymore.
I want a breast milk latte.
I was just thinking of the only relic that you do see is that satellite. You remember that scene where she points to the satellite, and that was a
call.
That was a great touch because that worked a lot better than seeing like some Statue of Liberty bullshit that we've seen a million times, because that was something where we still have no idea how far in time we are. We don't know if this is 100 years in the future, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. We have no idea. But we do know that, okay, there's a satellite floating in the air, and like that was just a good touch. It was just something where, I don't know, it worked a lot better because it left up to your imagination. Whereas if you saw,
it worked well because George Miller had this deep mythology for the current film. The current film was full of mythology that we didn't run out of stuff where he needed to go back and show a 7-Eleven or show a plane that doesn't fly anymore or a lost city. I mean, we had mythology. Every one of those cars was like its own universe.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a minute, because I think that like there are things going on in this movie where they're introducing new concepts. And, technology, let's not get all Greek about it, but it's techne and logos, so it's like art and logic come together. And they had all this technology with these cars, like the swinging pendulums with the guys on them. Like, that is something that is weird, and I don't understand how it's supposed to work.
It's almost
fine.
It's medieval, like they used to have pikes fighting.
But there was a physics to it, too. I mean, it was just like, and it held up. It didn't feel totally arbitrary. And so you have this swinging
that's
thing.
Desert battling, car battling in the future. I mean, it's so, the mythology is so deep and well thought out, and it's revealed visually. You didn't see it?
I'm going to disagree with you guys. You know why? Because I've been to Burning Man. I think George has been to Burning Man. All of these cars, all of this firepower.
But why would you not want an action movie where we've got Burning Man personified?
Like, that's great. No.
Totally Burning Man personified.
Tell us more.
If you go to Burning Man, you see like they take, like, honestly, I don't know where the money comes from, but you see kids that like deconstruct like double-decker buses that you see in Manhattan, and they turn them into. There is a Thunderdome at Burning Man, a real Thunderdome, and they spar with like huge mallets, like everything.
That's
I
awesome.
can't. No, I can't. Like for me, it's like, oh yeah, this is great because it reminds me of my default world of Burning Man. But it's not a big surprise, and I've seen some stuff that are even more tricked out than this. So I think it's just to the person that hasn't been to Burning Man, this is surreal. It's deep.
Which
but
is
if you've been to Burning
everybody.
Man, you've seen so much like this.
The
As soon as
Burning
the
Man
sun
is
goes
about
down,
is about
you have golf
heat-
carts
heat-
that like
hedonism,
spit
right?
flames. Well, that's part of it.
Or
It's
is
part
it
of it, but
anarchy? Because that's the theme of this film. It's like green order to anarchy.
You can't really define it. That's a way bigger question to
Everybody
define
has a
Burning Man.
different Burning Man. Okay.
Exactly, but to technically speaking, with the vehicles, that you have to see. I implore any of you to go on the web right now and just Google Burning Man vehicles. There you'll see golf carts with flames. You'll see like Chevy Impalas that are souped up with flames. Everything has flames because at nighttime it gets seriously cold, so everything is tricked out like Mad Max. I don't doubt that they probably
Have you
were
seen that
as
guitar player,
inspired by the
Christina?
original.
Yeah, what about the guitar player?
Have you seen the
That's what
flame throwing
that was
guitar player?
100% Burning Man. That was 100% Burning Man. Number one, right now, while you're on this podcast, and anyone that's listening to this, when this goes out, Google Burning Man flaming vehicles, and you'll be like, oh, I get it.
Well, don't look here.
We've been doing this for years, though. But I think we probably were inspired from the original.
Isn't that like? Doesn't that favor Mad Max that it's invoking these sorts of things that are this part of this kind of subculture? I mean, that's
it's a
pretty
desert
awesome.
culture. It's
yeah,
the,
I know. I
it's the
think
closest
it's a
thing we
hand-in-hand,
have to a modern
I think
desert
Burning Man
culture.
people have totally taken from the originals, like Mad Max and Road Warrior. I think they were inspired by that. Thus, like I said, there's a Thunderdome, and I think now seeing this again and even more high tech and beautiful, but it's it's happening. It really does happen at the end of August every year.
In a sense, it's like if hopefully when the new Star Wars film comes out, they fill it with some of the great mythology that's been built up over the last 20 years in fan fiction to extended universe, all that stuff that came from the original film, but hopefully will be represented in the new film, even though it wasn't originated, even though it was like the people who came up with it.
Yeah. No, I really want to see Jar Jar Binks. So.
Yeah. Right.
Wait, did anyone like not notice the shout out to the Dark Crystal? Like when they drove at night and those things were on stilts.
Yeah, the
Stitskis
or whatever they're called.
Yeah, very much. And that was just like a middle some town in the middle of the desert where they walk around on stilts. I totally thought of the Dark Crystal. Yeah,
that's crazy.
And it was a telling moment because they with the silhouettes they really made it meaningful and memorable, and so as soon as they referenced it later on, you're like, oh yeah, of course, I know what that was. Like I thought that was good storytelling. I mean, like we were talking about the storyboarding aspect of it, but like this was such a visual movie. I mean, nice work, good work, guys.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about good screenwriting, it's not necessarily dialogue on the page. You storyboard an entire film. You're writing the beats. Maybe there's no dialogue, but you're writing the beats. So I think what's most important is that the story, as in any screenwriting, the hardest thing to do is to keep it escalating the entire time. And every obstacle that Max and Furiosa run into is new, interesting, and more difficult than the last one. And every chapter of this version of the Iliad has a new set of minor characters, whether it's these these people on the stilts, whether it's the tribe from Furiosa's tribe. There's all this mythology built into it. And I mean, I know what you're saying, Kristina, about the Burning Man stuff, and it sounds right to me. But it also, I hate to make this the first comparison that came to mind, but you know, and anyone, no one read 50 Shades of Grey, right?
Are we actually going to talk about that? That sounds great.
No.
Please keep going.
No,
Keep going.
no.
E.L. James was not the first person to being like bondage and S&M. She didn't invent it.
It's to our the story
Right.
of like
Right,
please.
sure, exactly. There's tons of better history of that mythology, but she popularized it. She got it into a form that everybody could, that a broad audience could digest. So you don't have to be first; you just have to execute it differently.
Right.
What was some of our? Let's focus on this. What was some of our favorite pieces of the visual mythology, the visual things that we saw in this film? Jeremy, go first.
Well, I thought that the development of the antagonist culture was really awesome. I mean, it was like, you know that this guy is he's hoarding resources, which was what these movies have always been about. And in this case, you know, he's anticipating tomorrow, you know, and tomorrow's like resource wars, and then he's hoarding water. It's not just oil. And it's, you know, he's got this thing, he's got this kamikaze culture that's built around it. And I just thought that the intensity of the antagonism and who is after them is really intense. And like the blood bag thing, I mean, that you're using someone to deal with your disease by just like draining them of all their bodily fluids. I mean, it's they weren't stealing people off the road to empty their pockets and steal their car. It took it even further. In the other Mad Max movies, it was, I want your oil and I want your car, and then, you know, that's it, we're done with you. No, we're going a step further here, because we've got this army of guys who are suicidal because they're on death's door, and we're going to help you, you know, give them a blood transfusion, keep them alive a little longer. Yeah, and it was like your life is almost extraneous in this world. I mean, it's like we need you for other resources. So we've got oil, water, and blood. I mean, that's a pretty good trio. That's a nice thing to build your whole story around. And milk. Oh, it's just like a D story.
All
like,
the
give me a break.
All the liquids. These are the all of the eternal fluids of the world, right? That means life or death. And sand is the opposite, right? This is a $150 million movie. They had some great special effects too when the dust storm came, but most of this stuff is practical. Am I right, guys?
Yeah, there was like, I think it was 85% practical effects, and a lot of the CG that was done was to remove like wire work and stuff like that. But you can tell. I mean, when I'm watching this, I feel like I'm watching that. I think that's why it felt like a movie from the 80s and 90s, but in the best way possible. Whereas
70s and 80s, brother.
Well, you know, that's what I meant to say.
But Carter and early Reagan. Let's just situate this.
But no, it definitely felt like a throwback, because you're watching stunts. It felt like like a big spectacle, like you're watching a movie. It was a production, not like something that was done in a studio here and then shot in a studio there, and you know, background added later, which can look okay too, but this just felt real. It just felt like it was there. And we had actually, Dave, we had seen it in 3D, not because we wanted to. Because we couldn't get a regular ticket. Yeah, and I would actually say that there's not any reason to see this in 3D. I didn't really do anything for it.
I actually liked it. I
really
was happy. It was such a damn visual movie. I was fine with it. The 3D part, usually bad 3D or up 3D, distracts me. I was fine with it. I was so locked into the visuals of this film.
Right.
I'm fine with it.
Well, I think that's my point. I think I wouldn't, if it's between seeing the 3D and seeing, I would just, if you want to save money, see the regular. You're not missing anything. I don't think this needs to be seen in 3D, because the visuals as they are so like fantastic that the 3D for me didn't do anything to enhance it. If anything, maybe I got a little bit more immersed in the world, maybe, if anything, but I don't even think so. I think just seeing these, you know, amazing car chases and these car flips and
specifically?
Well, I mean, they went for it on.
Yeah, but you take that.
Jordan, tell us more about what you loved out of this visual, this beautiful set design, all this stuff. Give us some details of the stuff that you liked the most.
Yeah, so it was kind of said before, but let me elaborate on it. Where you have that guy who's on strings playing the guitar.
The guitar man.
Yeah. and
It's so rock and roll.
yeah, but you see him at first, and you don't know what to make out of it. Is this somebody who's playing this against their will? Are they a prisoner? Are they in pain? Like, I'm looking at this thing like, this just looks weird to me, just strange. Which is another example of, we're not explaining what the hell he's doing there and why he's playing music. Yeah. We get it through just context. Okay, well, I guess that's what they do. They've got a whole drum set on the back of.
He was blind though.
But do we even need to know?
Oh.
I mean, the point is like, this is an orchestral experience, and we're having fun. Like, let's go for it. I mean, that's the thing I like. It's like, no apologies. We're gonna rock it.
Well, the music is there because it's tribal. This thing is about tribe, and you don't motivate a tribe without rhythm, without melody. And I didn't realize he was blind, Kristina. Where did we get that?
When he actually is in the fight scene going back, and his thing, they're fighting around him, and his eyepiece comes off, and you see it's not even blind, it's hollows.
Awesome.
So we don't even know if that was done on purpose or whatnot.
I know his mouth is all like messed up as well. I from what I remember, like his mouth was like very, very fucked up when I saw it. Like it was very disturbing, especially just like having him hang there and play that weird instrument. It felt like something that made sense to these people, but we were just looking at it and completely, I don't know. It just, I love that. It felt very strange and awkward, and like I was witnessing another culture that I've never seen before, with a familiar instrument. It was a guitar, but it had flames coming out of it, and they knew why he was there, but they're like, well, why the fuck would you bring a guy like that? But they knew exactly why.
Why wouldn't you bring a guy like that? That
guy's awesome.
Like my show.
It's so great that what's so great. There's only one of him.
Right.
It's like he's Flea, like he's Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers or something.
He needs to be dealt with eventually. That's the other thing. Like he gets dealt with eventually. It's awesome.
Right. Do you think he does? Do you think he does weddings and bar mitzvahs?
He burns them down.
Yeah.
Pyromaniac.
Thinking back to Thunderdome, there was definitely an Australian influence in that film. Everyone still has Australian accents. In this film, they got rid of all the Australian stuff. They did Americanize the film, right? They had American accents. So other than that, but thinking about the Thunderdome, I kept thinking about there was definitely an Aboriginal influence. There was definitely an Australian influence, and I was trying to make sense on Fury Road. What is the influence here? Because my first instinct, and because this is part of the genre I write in, was cyberpunk, because cyberpunk is using technology, a downtrodden group using technology to spark a revolution against an oppressive power, right? But this is not the Matrix, right? And it's not steampunk either, because these things are not steam powered; they're oil powered. So to me, it was like diesel punk, right?
Right.
Because it's essentially like, has this Australian Aboriginal influence with the drums, the body paint, the desert people, and then it meets muscle cars, chrome, and maniacs. It just felt, and that all feels so damn 80s.
Yeah, absolutely.
A guitar solo, feels 80s. The chrome cars, even though these cars were insanely like tricked out, better than they did in the 80s. Guys,
but it's like a retrospective of the 80s. That's the thing. I agree with you that it's situated in that era, but it's perverted by what we know now. It's an anachronism.
Absolutely,
it's a total anachronism.
It's modern. It's retro. It's not period 80s apocalypse. It's retro 80s apocalypse, which is great. Which makes me think of all the great 80s retro stuff in the last few years, like Drive or. I don't know. I'm off the top of my head. Other 80s retro is so in right now in filmmaking and in fashion.
But that's a great point, because you could have I didn't see one Prius out there. I mean,
which would have made a ton of sense.
Right. I mean, you didn't see any modern cars like from
no
now.
Solar powered shit.
Right. I mean, you didn't even see a Tesla but it just felt like, okay, we established this world that we started in the 80s, and we're just gonna fucking go with it. Like, yeah, whatever. These are the cars that we were left with.
You could just see the scientists. coming over with a Tesla saying, "Hey, we've got these," and like, yeah, I'm not driving that.
Yeah.
Now listen to this. Right now we're talking about there's one place they're not too far away from that has oil, and we're in the middle of the desert. So let's like make the leap. This is probably the Middle East in the future or whatever time you want to pick. And then let's slightly compare it to Cuba, like when there was the embargo, when they had to deal with old stuff. I'm thinking right now that these people probably went to the Middle East where they knew there was oil and they pulled up shop, and that's why they're there. You know, think about where you would get oil from. They're
that's
not
a fine
in Alaska,
fantasy.
you don't see any trees.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
loving
fine
this
fantasy, but like this is an Australian vintage movie, and it's outback. Even though it's not necessarily outback, it's like outback-like. I don't think that we're in the Middle East. Like there were no Middle Easterns running around. Like I didn't see any Bedouins out there. Like I mean, it was very white.
They were in the rocks. The Ewoks were in the rocks.
Yeah, I mean, if it was the Middle East, you're right. It is very white for the Middle East, unless that's what happens in the future, which honestly,
people powdering their
That
skins.
was the place to go. That was the place to go. Like
yeah, maybe.
everyone got on their Lear jets and bumped over there because they knew there was tons of oil there.
I think you're
That's
taking
possible.
it directions that don't even exist here.
It's possible, but
But that really exists.
But that's the fun.
It all exists.
That's the fun of it being so like vague.
it's ambiguous.
Exactly, ambiguous, so that you can kind of project
Story.
your own. Exactly, project your own. Just your imagination and say, okay, where are we? What time are we? When does this take place? And that's half the fun. But that really doesn't matter when it comes to the story.
Well, and we don't even know what apocalyptic world looks like. I mean, is it desert-like, or is it just desert-like because it was always desert-like? We don't really know.
Right.
Did they live in the desert before? Maybe they did. Who knows?
I want to hear the thing you didn't like, and the thing you liked the most about the movie, one at a time. We're gonna end this podcast nice and tight, okay? And I want to start with Kristina.
I love the drive into the sandstorm. I was so excited for that, and I just didn't know what to expect on the other side. And I just loved visually. I loved that 100%. What didn't I like?
What was your problem with the film?
That's my one problem is that you didn't define why. And I know you're like, oh, we don't have to define anything. It's just a wonderful movie because there's cars. But you did. You kind of had to tell me why Charlize Theron is not popping out babies, and then why there are no other fighters that are female.
Yeah,
what makes her special and unique?
And
we don't know that.
She lost an arm doing something. It might
Exactly.
ass kicking.
And trusted. Well, I don't even care about special and unique. What made her trusted? She must have gone down and done something pretty.
She was an imperator. That's like Latin for emperor or whatever. So she's a badass.
So she had to. But what made her a badass? What made those guys trust her and put her in that position to drive the truck? That's pretty important position.
Jordan.
Yeah.
What'd you like? What problem you have? Maybe tell us what you didn't like and then what you liked.
Yeah, let me start with what I didn't like because it's small. Because as I guess you can tell, I love this movie. So I guess the only thing is that I would have liked. I would like to have gotten a little bit more backstory on Bane, Mad Max. Because I feel like while yes, maybe compared to Charlize Theron and Furiosa, he didn't play the biggest part. I felt like it could have been a little bit. It could have that ending where he's kind of bowing out. I just felt there was no character development really. The only thing you have is that you find out that he does have a heart and he's not a complete asshole and he's not in this for himself and he wants to help them. That's fine, but why was he like that?
Yeah, he was fairly one-dimensional.
Yeah, there's no backstory, and I get that it's told in the other movies. I don't care. I want to make like I've never seen the other movies and get something. Just give me something to go off of. A scene where he talks about how his daughter is dead. Something that makes me feel for him. That makes me feel like he had a shitty past.
Favorite part of the movie?
Okay, it's got to be the guitar dude. I mean, it all goes back to that guitar dude.
He was awesome.
Yeah, I'm waiting for his spin-off movie. I want to see guitar. I want to see guitar dude. I want to see Mad Max 5 guitar dude. Like that. That's what I'm waiting for. Yeah. No. My favorite thing was honestly that it was
guitar solo. I mean, he's solo guitar. He's the only guy who knows how to play guitar. He won't teach anybody else how to play because he needs the job security.
But the whole design of the movie, just such an eye for detail. Whoever designed it, I mean, it's just. I hope that they get nominated and win something because they deserve it. But yeah, that was my favorite aspect of the film.
Jeremy.
I think my favorite thing was that we took something that was old in this case, very old. What are we? We're 24, 25 years old, and we made it new, and we found a way to make it different and interesting and build on what was already there. And it's my whole issue. We talked about last time we had a podcast. We were talking about the Age of Ultron and just like the Marvel morass that they're in. And this was a movie that was free of that, even though it was in some ways a remake. So I really appreciated that.
It was an independent vision. This thing was $150 million indie film.
Yeah, it was great. It was its own take, and it built on it, and it used the prior efforts in a really strong way. The thing I didn't like was I thought that it was more feminist probably than I expected, but I didn't.
That made it wonderful.
Yeah, that made it wonderful, but I didn't think that the breeders were fully actualized, and I would have liked to see their characters a little stronger. I would have liked to have known a few of their names. Like I have
see a little more breeding.
Yeah, I have images of the one who's super preggers and who's holds herself out of the truck. I mean, that was an iconic moment. But I didn't see what the rest of them did, and so that one.
No, they just had a hot one of every flavor.
Yeah, but it was a little trite.
Such a guy's dream.
Yeah, so it was a wet dream, but I would like to see it be more than a wet dream. I'd like to see it be a character study with at least one of those breeders. So that's my only complaint, but I think it was a pretty awesome movie.
I want to concur with Jordan. I wanted more Mad Max. I love that the closing image is him alone in the crowd, matching up with the opening image of him alone with his car completely. So it's yes, I'm a loner alone, and then at the end he's a loner who saved the people. Classic reluctant hero loner scenario. He doesn't even kiss the girl, but I don't need more backstory from Mad Max. I want more choices. He has one choice, the obvious one, where he goes back for them after they've made the mistake. I just wanted a little bit more character from Mad Max. I love that visually this movie was stunning. This movie does so many things that's hard with screenwriting, keeping the action interesting and escalating, keeping the conflict present, giving us breaks. I don't know if you guys realize this because it feels like such a thrill ride, but they do take breaks. Every action set piece is followed by a small break with a little bit of comedy, a little character development, beautifully done for an action film. But for the most part, the biggest victory here is how I started off. That this mythology, which is deep, this story, this world that George Miller created is so rich, and they didn't spoon feed us any of it. They let us discover it slowly, visually, and yes, we want more.
Or rediscover it.
Rediscover it, yeah. Absolutely.
I felt fresh. I felt like my attention to the trilogy was respected.
Absolutely. You couldn't have asked for a better new awesome chapter. Yeah. Let George Miller take over Star Wars.
Yeah. Or Justice League. He was supposed to do a Justice League movie.
That's true. He was back in the day. He would have taken over.
Now I'm thinking I want to see that freaking movie. What would that movie have been like? Holy shit.
Is that some comic book trash that we're talking about right now?
Yeah. Let's not ruin the end of the podcast by referring to it.
Yeah, boo.
Guys, thank you very much. This is the script produced by Jordan Rosengarten, David Negrin. You can email us, fan mail us, hate mail us, comments, questions, proclamations, proposals of marriage at scriptfeed@gmail.com. Join our Facebook page or our Google Plus page by searching for NYC Screenwriters Collective. You can also follow us on Twitter at ScriptFeed. If you live in New York City, sign up for one of our workshops at meetup.com under NYC Screenwriters Collective. Guys, thank you very much. 4 scribes enter, 1 podcast remains.
Later, skater.
Later.
Cheers.